Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ventures Podcast. This episode with Gordon Meyer is wide-ranging and all about Web3 marketing, building a community, building an audience. You know, the entrepreneurs listening in, there's so much noise out there. It's very difficult to get people's attention. And so there's a lot of practical tips and tricks in this episode. In light of the new internet, in light of what Web3 is going to be up to in terms of DAOs, NFTs, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you will too. Before we get into it, I do want to tell you about a portfolio company I've invested in, my partners and I at Proto Ventures. It's called Supplement. I'm going to link to it in the show notes. If you're looking for a water bottle, this is a unique water bottle company that's all about urban wellness. I actually had Jarius on the show. He's the CEO and founder of this company. I'm going to link to it in the show notes. Go check it out. If you need a water bottle, this for a holiday gift, this is for you and for your loved ones and for your friends. So go check it out. So for this episode, if you are watching, you can also listen by searching anywhere that you get your podcasts. You can just search for Ventures and it should show up. And if you're listening, you can also watch by visiting wclittle.com. There I'll have more extensive show notes, the different things that we talk about today, because this is an important episode, how to get people's attention. And hint, it's about building community or finding a community and then communicating from there. So with that, please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation that will educate you about Web3 and help you understand how to grow a community. All right, Gordon, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited for this conversation. No lack of things to talk about. I'd like to just start. What is emerging technology? Why is this exciting to you?
I think what's fascinating to me about emerging technology is when these new ideas come out, new paradigms, ways of looking at things, technology that transforms everyday life for a lot of people. At the outset, there's typically a philosophical conversation that's happening. You know, sort of what is this? Who is it for? And there's a debate. So I've been a part of that debate, whether that was for cryptocurrency. I've been involved in the industry now for 4 or 5 years. But before that, I was heavily involved in the augmented reality industry, the virtual reality industry. I served as president of the VR AR Association here in New York, where I live. And even before that, there was, satellite radio or just web, 1.0.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at Razorfish, we were developing, websites for brands, built Schwab.com. It was, wow, banks can now exist on the internet. And what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Being a part of those conversations is exciting for me intellectually. It's also really gratifying when these technologies that I heavily, drink the Kool-Aid, massively believe in. I'm voting with my feet here, when I join a company or espouse a particular technology. But I do believe at the bottom of my heart that this is good for people. This is good for society. And I like being a part of that sort of change, that we're attacking the status quo and pulling our unified experience as whatever, a species, to evolve, to get better, whether it's faster, new ideas, more access to more people, like what we're experiencing right now with the crypto revolution. Right, this is about going after the typical sources of power. I think one of the things that blockchain does really well is it takes a guillotine to power, where those moats may exist in order to drive more profit at the expense of the little guy, right? And I love being a part of championing the little guy, the little person, maybe who's being pushed down by the status quo to find new ways of doing things, right? Or new way. When it was the internet 1.0, this is a printing press for everybody now, right? Before that was the publishers were in charge of the message, right? So we opened up new doors in a lot of different ways, and that's right. You think about the internet, right? It's not very old. It's in my lifetime.
That's right.
I mean, when I was at J. Walter Thompson, we were showing clients the fact that we had the internet on our computers. We were bragging about that, right? Before that, it was memos. Before all this stuff. So, being a part of that, I think for me is incredibly gratifying.
So the revolution. You use the word revolution. I agree. I've been investing and playing and building in Web3 for quite some time, way before we called it Web3. And I still find it very difficult to explain to people. There's basically an infinite number. If you think of it as like the Death Star of a topic, right? Where there's you can approach it and go through lots of different parts. It's this huge
Hmm.
multi-complex
Hmm.
thing. Where do you typically, when you're explaining Web3, and I like it from the angle of a revolution. So let's just say if you're explaining Web3 from the angle of a revolution, how do you talk about that? How do you go from somebody who's an adult who's been in business and industry for a while, maybe even reasonably technical, but still doesn't really understand what Web3 is. How do you even approach the conversation?
There's a fundamental shift happening right now, and blockchain is really leading the way. And we have to really separate out to blockchain versus crypto, right? Because
Yeah,
the underlying technology has a lot of applications, and it's very, very broad, much more beyond pictures of bored apes or the latest. Can I curse on this podcast?
absolutely. Yeah,
Can I say shitcoin?
right.
I have a potty mouth. If you don't like it, you can, I guess, change the channel or
I'll put
watch
the
the next
explicit
episode.
when I put the explicit tag on, it gets more views
Right?
anyway. So yeah.
What this technology from day one, and if you go back and read Satoshi's white paper for Bitcoin, this really is designed to cut the head off of the authority figure and give the power back to the people, the participants. So this really Web3, I would say, is synonymous with when the people are in charge, when the community is in charge, and the community is calling the shots. I think we're moving away from it's a major paradigm shift. We're moving away from leaders, even elected leaders or CEOs of companies. Like when we talk about Web3, we can also talk about a DAO,
Yeah.
right? And what a decentralized autonomous organization looks like and means when the participants are also making the decisions and guiding the company. What I say as a marketer too, internally when I talk to any other marketer, what tends to happen, whether it's a designer or a writer or any kind of person involved in the craft of marketing, my caution to all of them is be careful. It's you. You may be smart, but it's you not versus the customer. It's you versus the hive mind, and the
Mm,
hive mind always wins.
mm,
Always.
mm,
You're not smarter than the hive mind. The hive mind has solved cold cases. The hive mind has located missing individuals. Something comes up on the internet or whatever, a question, and the hive mind answers it very, very quickly. In a lot of
mm,
ways, we as people now are functioning almost as a supercomputer.
mm.
And as soon as the hive mind catches wind of any foul play, any dirt to be discovered, anything, it's going to be then shared with the hive mind, and then the hive mind is everyone at the same time is instantly aware of this. So when we think about these communities too, right, whether that's a crypto-based community or sneakerheads, once somebody discovers something, it's instantly shared from this magic device, a phone that I'm holding in my hand, and that community is instantly notified, whether it's on Twitter or Telegram or you name it. That's a very powerful thing, and that's not something that we've seen before. So this Web3 is participatory culture. I love that we're able to pull apart more traditional commercial enterprises into component parts where the community themselves can furnish those pieces. By
Mhm.
way of example, right? Like, so if I have like a PlayStation behind me and a TV. So if I want to play like a driving game, PlayStation may develop that game, sell it for $60 a pop. It might cost damn near a billion, hundreds of millions of dollars to create. If it's Forza or Gran Turismo, um, they're hoping it's $1 billion enterprise, just the game alone.
Mm,
The problem is that if I soup up my car, spend hours and hours, hundreds of hours optimizing my car, at some point PlayStation will decide to turn off the servers and away goes all of my work, right? Along comes Web3 and says, well, let's think about this a different way. What if the car is an NFT and people own it? And so now my race car is mine. It's an NFT. I can bring my car, almost like a kid playing with Matchbox cars with their friends at the playground. I can bring my NFT to the game, but we have to ask too, what is the game? Well, if I own the car, Well, maybe somebody owns a track, and maybe there's someone out there in the community who creates a racetrack, charges a fee for people to race on it. That is sort of the game, but not the game that we normally think of, right? I bring my car, perhaps there's a pot, and perhaps I even win money if I win the race. But I'm also leveling up my car and building value in my own digital asset, and I can sell that asset on a secondary market. Who's in charge of the game? There's no CEO. There's no marketing department. There is a collective of people who are coming together in this, sort of joint enterprise together. That is what I'm saying with Web3. This is the community coming together to recreate what we're used to experiencing, whether that's a video game or a company or money itself, and creating it as a group. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It borders on, this is like, the digital libertarians who brought about cryptocurrency are in some ways bringing about socialism,
Right.
built on blockchain technology, where the people are in charge. I think that's amazing. And we go back to the word revolution. Is that accurate? Absolutely. An accurate term in this instance.
Yeah, because it's a power shift, right?
Yes.
And the power shift, we're starting to see examples of the power shift. One of the most obvious ones is around artists that have just talk about so many people in the middle taking pieces of that pie. Music artists, graphic artists, the artists that are able now, and because the whole key thing, this is why for you as a marketer, right? I have 1,000 questions around it, because I come from more of an engineering, product startup executive, investor background, after my bioengineering days, which is a whole nother story. But when I started building products, I realized you can't do the whole build it and they'll come thing, especially over the last 15 years, as people's attention have gotten, the whole attention economy is quite fascinating with those phones and all those social apps and messaging apps and various forms of apps taking our attention. So how do you process? So as a marketer, how do you process the attention economy in light of, we all have these phones and we're all just getting hit up all the time? Like where is value? How are you even thinking about this? And this is an entrepreneurial audience, so let's maybe tailor this to entrepreneurs out there that are thinking about building stuff. Web3 marketing, attention. Let's chat about this a little bit.
So I'm an advisor to Techstars, and I recently gave a talk to several hundred CEOs in their program on go-to-market strategy. And the central thesis of my talk was that typically technology and startups especially develop the product in-house. And when it's done, they hire a marketing person and they say, this is my beautiful baby. Everyone wants to kiss it. Your job is to get as many people to kiss the baby as possible. There's a problem with that, right? In that marketing, in order to get the machine built, develop the strategy, develop all the infrastructure around it, make sure that these things can be measured and optimized, takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And so a big problem with marketing is that marketing really has a marketing problem, in that when it's done well, it's very seamless and invisible. It's almost like magic. Right? And so you have somebody like Elon Musk claiming he doesn't invest in any marketing for Tesla, which is total bullshit. Ooh, I got the curse. Here he is, and saying he launched Tesla with no market research, or like the Cybertruck as a good example. He said he had no market research in the launch around that. And yet he's invested a lot of money in his own Twitter account. Hell, he's invested a lot more money in Twitter itself these days. But as a silly back of the envelope math equation, if you look at the man's income per year and the sheer amount of time that he's spending on Twitter, if every tweet is on average of 4 minutes, this guy is a tweeting machine.
Right.
He tweets all hours of the day, 24/7. And a lot of his tweets are actual replies. I don't believe this is ghost-written stuff. He's not hiring somebody to do Twitter for him. This is him. And, his time is valuable. He's investing a lot of time in this. And on his Twitter account with its millions, hundreds of millions of followers, he went out and asked, if I were to do a truck, what would you want? He got over 30,000 replies. Some of the replies said things like, no wheel humps. Well, guess what? The Cybertruck doesn't have any wheel humps. People were asking for specific qualities. This was his market research. So he's going around saying he did none, but of course he did years before the Cybertruck was even announced.
Right.
And so we in technology, especially in startups, especially startups founded by people much closer to the product as opposed to marketing, hear that and think, oh, this marketing stuff is easy. I'm just going to launch my beautiful baby and everyone's going to want to kiss it. But well, Elon Musk, who's a brilliant marketer in his own right, did his market research and delivered a product that the people themselves, his potential customers, said that they wanted.
Mm.
He says he has no marketing budget. Well, the average cost per acquisition in the auto industry is around $10,000 of marketing spend per vehicle spent. Well, guess what? If I get a friend to also, put in and buy a Tesla, I would get a $10,000 credit. He just shifted the money. And he's going direct to the consumer and paying the consumer the marketing costs. If they can act on his behalf and sell more trucks, power to them.
Right.
Why not pay your own super fans 10 grand as opposed to CBS or the next Super Bowl ad? Do we really need that? And so that's happening all over the place, where we're disintermediating the powers that be, especially companies that are acting like the troll under the bridge. And whether that's an advertising platform charging exorbitant fees, or a government limiting the people's access to whatever it might be, you name it, those power structures are being eradicated, and it becomes way more tantalizing than to say, well, I don't need to pay an intermediary. I'm just going to go direct. And so blockchain is completely shifting whether the advertising industry itself. Right. I mean, the Brave browser, and if anyone here has looked into Braze, or the Brave browser and its underlying technology, the fundamental idea is shifting the economy of the internet completely on its head. Why not pay people to see your ads?
Right.
As opposed, and give the money direct to the people. We can do that now with the internet, with technology. Everyone's on 5G these days. You can handle a lot more. We don't need to pay some tastemaker in the middle. We can go direct, and that's fascinating to me. So in technology, the products that tend to fail are the ones that were developed without really thinking of the end user. What I find a lot of tech CEOs fail to do, or the central failure, is they don't acknowledge the hive mind being smarter than they are. And very often founders envision some sort of, problem solution set, but they're envisioning some made up person in their head. It's not even them. And it's sort of like, I'm going to build this and they're all going to come to me, these imaginary people in my head that need, I don't know
Right.
what, a new hula hoop or
Right.
whatever this invention may be. And they're not there because they weren't, and the people aren't going to be there if they weren't there from day one at the seed level of the idea.
So what do you do? What's your advice for someone who doesn't, maybe they're not Elon Musk, they don't have a big network, they maybe got a couple Twitter followers, their mom and their grandma or whatever. What do you do if you have this idea, you're building a company, you're trying to get attention? What advice do you have for them?
Either A, build a community, or B, find a community that it is close enough to your ideal target audience and speak to them as much as you possibly can. That could be a community on Reddit. That can be a community on anywhere on the internet, Telegram, you name it, Twitter. But if you're not engaging with who you're envisioning the consumer to be for your product or service, and you're not engaging with them until you're ready to get out on stage and unleash your product, you've waited far, far too long, and you're probably going to fall straight on your face. You're going to face on stage in front of everyone. No matter how much marketing plays catch up, especially as a startup, if you're VC funded, no VC wants to hear that you're spending gobs and gobs of cash on marketing. What they want to hear is that you have a ready-made audience, hungry and ready for you to, open the metaphorical, gate of your business on day one, and there's a line outside waiting at your door. And guess what? Very often that's not the case.
Yeah.
What for those businesses where, and I always feel like a successful business is when you show up to your storefront, you're opening up that gate in front of the door, and there's already a line there. Well, there are lines for certain businesses already. You see them in New York City all the time, whether
Right.
that's the latest sneaker drop or the hotly anticipated new Apple product, or you name
Right.
it.
Right.
But when you say hotly anticipated, it's because there's a baked-in community that's hungry for this product or service. That's why they're lining up. That's why people are lining up on day one when the movie drops, day one when the phone drops, day one when the sneaker drops. Um, so, hello world, I'm here. Doesn't everybody want to kiss my beautiful baby? Well, no, there's a lot of babies out there, a lot of choices for consumers.
Hmm.
I think the failure is, even in the language, when you start thinking about your customers as the quote unquote consumer or the other and not you yourself. And this
Mm.
isn't necessarily something that you want to use every day. There's a problem. I've been a part of, I don't know how many startups where, for whatever reason, call it economics, the product itself was not furnished to all of the employees. You don't see the employees practicing their trade craft or using the product on a daily basis. You're missing out on all of those opportunities. And maybe some founders don't want to do it because they don't want to hear messages they don't want to hear. But if your own team aren't living and breathing the product or service that you're developing every single day, you're doing something wrong.
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
If
Yeah.
you work at Slack and your team meetings aren't occurring inside Slack and you're using Zoom, there's something
Right.
wrong.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that happens all the time in tech. Developing a product, I was part of an augmented reality company. We had hardware. It was a projector that could sense distance and objects and leveraged artificial intelligence to learn to recognize all kinds of different objects on your desk. It was, for all intents and purposes, a computer, but I didn't have one on my desk.
Mm.
I didn't get to use it every day. I got to showcase it at South by Southwest. I got to, sit there and
Right.
watch as other
Right.
people played with it, but I wasn't playing with it every single day. And I think that's a mistake that founders make, is that you need to practice your trade craft every single day. I, as a marketer, let's say I talk about Twitter and it's important for a brand to be on Twitter. Well, I'm on Twitter every single day. I have not 1 million followers. I have 16,000 followers, but I do practice my trade craft. It's
Mm.
important to engage.
Mm.
And for all founders, all businesses, if you're not doing that, again, you're I hate to say it, but they're playing company. They're not a real company.
Right.
They're
Right.
playing.
Right. Yeah. It's sage advice around either build a community or join a community. And I'm curious now, in light of Web3, how does this change the game from a marketing and a community building perspective?
When I was at SiriusXM and we were building out social, I thought a lot about who are our super fans.
Mm.
We're the die-hard customers that love the product. They almost don't care what the price is. They're going to be your subscriber. They're going to be there with you all the time. Those super fans are your VIP customers, if you will. And what they think about your product and services and how they want to get involved is vitally important. And when building a community, whether it's 10 people or 100 people, there's always a super fan among them. There's somebody who's a major contributor, somebody
Mm.
who's happy to be there.
Mm.
When building a community, will sort of maybe under the table incentivize that person who's really raising their hand. I mean, they're ready. They're working for you for free. They're a volunteer. And there's got to be a way to engage with them so that they get, a little bit closer to, um, the information. They're maybe getting a VIP elevated status. Perhaps you're even paying them directly. But you need to build a community and build it around your super fans.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who your super fans are, and if you're building a product or service right now, and you want to launch in the next 6, 12 months, you better find who your super fans may well be. And, if you were to whisper to some people that you're about what you're building, and somebody says, "My God, that sounds like amazing. I want to buy it from day one." And if you were to, let's say, similar to Tesla, say, "We're launching this thing next year, but if you want to get online," I think Tesla was like $100 to get online, get on the wait list. If you were to offer a wait list, who is on that wait list? How many names can you get? And amongst them, who might potentially be a band leader of your community to help rally the troops in a very authentic and organic way to help get some cohesion in the community and get some conversation going.
Mm.
That would be a healthy community, right?
Mm.
We're not all strangers. We can talk about things other than the product. We can talk about companies other than the company. We're real
Mhm.
human beings with, 300 degrees of interests, passions, pursuits. All of that is just rich data. let the community talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. This is data for you. Now you know
Right.
more about your customer. In marketing, we have personas. It's usually something that, especially startups decide on early on. They make some BS persona as an exercise and forget about it.
Mm.
You need that persona up on your wall, and you need to stare at it every single day. And the more real you can make that persona with real individual people, true with real names and real photographs, the better.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. So now, what are you excited about in the future here, in the worlds that you live in, the projects you're working on? What in the next 6 to 12 months are the things that you're most amped about?
I am very bullish, believe it or not, on NFTs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm very bullish also on DAOs. I think
Mm.
the concept of the DAO hasn't really reached enough of a mass yet in the kind of emerging technology community, but it's
Right.
going to.
Right.
Right. So DAO for your listeners, you're going to hear about DAOs like next year and the year after. Right.
Right.
It's not a big topic of conversation now, but it's coming and it's incredibly exciting. Let's start with NFTs. NFTs were non-fungible tokens, right? It was brilliant when it was developed, separate from Bitcoin, to be able to say, whereas a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin in the sense that all Bitcoin have the same value. To take a cryptocurrency, split it apart from unified value across everything, uh, each individual asset can have its own value based on the market. That's brilliant. Attaching it, I like to I would liken an NFT really to the card in the card catalog in the library. If any of your listeners remember what those, because it's not in fact the book
Right.
or the work of art or anything like that. It's a registry that establishes ownership of a thing, and that registry may include a link to the thing. In the case of Bored Ape, that's a JPEG or an animated GIF or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this registry can encompass a lot of different things. And I think it gets interesting when we're not just buying and selling JPEG art, which I think is a failing marketplace and probably won't exist the way we know it in the next 2 or 3 years. I think it'll flatline to nearly zero.
Mm.
I think we'll have a lot of worthless NFTs running around. But let's say, I have behind me like a diploma. When a diploma is on an NFT, that gets interesting.
Mm.
When my driver's license becomes an NFT, and it will, I'll
Right.
make a personal guarantee. This is a fait
Right.
accompli. It'll happen. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
You can quote me, mark my words. Your driver's license will be on the blockchain. Well, that's interesting. Now it's unhackable. It's there. It's a registry. You can do a heck of a lot more with it. Certainly, the idea of losing your driver's license or carrying it in your wallet seems kind of silly. And all the technology that they use, the holograms and things to make sure people don't whatever. NFT solves all of that in terms of the security, fake IDs, what have you, right? And especially on a centralized registry that, say, your local government would own and control, right? So New York City would control the registry of New York State licenses on the blockchain. But I use my license for a heck of a lot of different things, right? I use my license to, let's say, establish my identity, establish the fact that I'm over 21 so I can get into a bar.
Right.
I can use my driver's license to establish my age to buy beer at the local whatever grocery store. Heck, I use that to get onto a plane, right? I use that to vote, right? To establish my identity. Well, what happens when my phone has now, digitally speaking, my driver's license? It has a document of my identity. Pair that with the ability to run an actual election on the blockchain. What stops any government from running a full election on the blockchain, and citizens can use their smartphone or a kiosk or whatever, right? Tied to their identity, they're legally allowed to vote. They're a citizen, they've whatever, in good standing, are able to vote, eligible to vote. What happens when the participation of elections approaches nearly 100%? What happens when you reduce all of the friction of showing up at a polling location, waiting online for hours, getting your silly sticker that says I voted? What happens when I can do that on my way to work from my phone? And once it becomes that easy, and that's NFT, that's don't get me wrong, this is NFT, right? So when people make fun of it, it's not Bored Apes. It's revolution in terms of elections. And what happens then about local elections? Well, far fewer people vote in local elections than in national elections. What about your local community board? What happens when everyone can vote from their phone? Do we even need a community board? Right? What happens when there's, the 10th unfortunate car accident at the corner by my house, and maybe we should have a traffic light there instead of a stop sign?
Right.
Could the local residents in the immediate area vote on installing a traffic light and release the funds through smart contracts to the whatever the lowest bidder or the highest bidder, or whatever the criteria may be?
Yeah.
Get that street lamp the street light installed. Then, right, we are doing what I said at the beginning. This is fulfilling on the promise where blockchain can take a guillotine to power. It can literally remove the concept of a president, allow the people to vote seamlessly, transparently, securely, based on their identity. And it all comes down to, this driver's license as an ID up on the blockchain. That's all coming. That's the world that I think my children will live in.
I love it.
That is amazing, right?
I love it. All right. Well, where can people find you online? What kind of things you're up to that people should be following you to learn about or discover?
Well, definitely follow me on Twitter at Gordon Meyer Jr. My personal note to everyone listening is ask me any question. I promise I'll answer it. So feel free to use that as a resource on Twitter. Find me there. From there, you can find everything else I'm involved in, especially Mamoru. If you're interested in buying, selling cryptocurrency, I'm head of marketing at Mamoru. We're a crypto exchange, focused very much on emerging markets, but we have a global exchange as well, open to almost everybody, so that you can buy, sell, trade cryptocurrency seamlessly and securely in a very user-friendly way. I'm proud of the exchange that the company has built from the ground up to be, as we were talking about before, user-friendly from day one.
Yeah.
I think it's one of my gripes that a lot of the crypto exchanges are seemingly built for like day traders. Right. And there's not enough day traders to go around for like the 300 exchanges that exist right now, according to CoinMarketCap. We're moving into a new phase on this mass adoption. And I think that, slowly but surely the crypto industry is waking up to the fact that, the banks did have some good ideas. The banks did have some good ideas around customer service, customer care. I don't know about you, but if you have any crypto exchanges, my question to everybody is, if you wanted to talk to customer care at insert crypto exchange here, Binance, Coinbase, you name it. I've had friends who've been hacked. They've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in crypto. There's no phone number at Coinbase that they could find. There was no way to get a hold of customer service. But if you were lost all the money in your bank, you would know what to do, right? That's coming to this industry, and a deep focus on customer service, which I welcome, right? If we want mass adoption, that's all coming. So I'm happy to go out and champion that and to align with companies that are doing that and in a meaningful way as Mamoru is doing.
Love it. Love it. Gordon, well, appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. I had a lot of fun.
This was great. All right. Take care.
Cheers.
All right, a couple quick things before you go. Number one, I have a general newsletter where I write about technology and startups and health science and teaching people to code. And I write about a variety of different subjects that we talk about on this show. So if you go to wclittle.com, there you'll be able to subscribe, and you'll also be able to subscribe to particular topics. If you're just interested in one or a few of them, you'll be notified right when I publish new content in those areas. Number two, my partners and I at Proto Ventures have a portfolio company called Startup Rocket. If you go to startuprocket.com, there you'll be able to receive coaching guides and customize an operations framework for you and your team and your advisors to be on the same page in terms of what is the appropriate next step for you and your entrepreneurial journey. And finally, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review anywhere that you have listened to this podcast or watched this podcast, it'd be super helpful to help those who might be interested in consuming this content as well. Thank you.